Good evening, everybody. It's your boy Kentario, and I'm back again for another episode of Christ and Comic Books. Now, I want to start this video off, of course. It's been a minute. It's been almost a month now since my last video. And of course, starting this video off, that's one of those things that's actually going to change. We're going to get to a point where we're doing a video once a week. And as even more so as things are getting more consistent, we're going to try and do at least 2 videos per week. That way you guys are getting more content. That way we're hitting on more topics. Again, these videos are for the purpose of relating manga to those types of things, because in written illustrations, in books, they try to illustrate and speak to some of the messages that we're dealing with in today's age and society even. So make sure you guys hit that like button if you're into the channel. Also make sure that you subscribe. I'd love to have you on and hear some of the things that you have to say, so please make sure you leave a comment as well. Now, getting into today's video, this is going to be our part 2 of our anime versus the Bible series, and this is being on the topic of demons. Our last video we discussed how demons are very relative in anime, as we can see very, very strongly, and it's very important as we get into the focus of this video to make sure that we separate those two things. And what I mean by separate those two things, enjoy the manga, enjoy the anime that involves demons, but you need to be very careful when watching and reading those things. And we're going to talk about some of the reasons why we need to be very careful with that. I am not a demonologist specialist in any type of way. I just had done a lot of studies. I've been taught by several teachers, and I have a understanding that I try to use to encourage others, and even more so to ensure that I keep myself safe, to speak to why I take this so seriously. When I was younger, I gotten into Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And Yu-Gi-Oh cards, yeah, they had their fiends, they had their witches, they had their different types of monsters in the game, right? And I was into the game. I liked the strategy side of it. I liked the deck building that came with it. Creating is a part of something that I enjoy, so I enjoyed that with Yu-Gi-Oh. But in playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I noticed that there was this bondage I was setting myself up for, and I can give you a deeper side to that story in the future, but long story short, I had to break that for myself. So I broke out of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I broke out of playing Magic the Gathering, I broke out of playing Card Fight Vanguard, I broke out of several different card games that were having me bound, so that I could be free and make better and wiser decisions. So I made that decision to move on. Now, one of the things that I did in response to that, my godson, Isaiah, he demonstrated to me that he liked playing Magic. And of course, you know, I played the game with him. We had fun with that. And well, as soon as he started actually talking about the game, as I kind of shared some stuff, I heard him give the same responses that I was giving to my dad in my times of ignorance and bondage. He was saying a lot of the similar things. And, you know, I had to switch up to, wow, when you are partaking in certain things, you have to realize whether it is bonding you or whether you had to be free of that others can be bound to it as well. So you have to be very careful of what things you show people are just comfortable with you. You got to be careful of what things you just say are okay, because you don't know what kind of effect that will have on them, which is very scary. It's very dangerous if you're not careful. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. So let's first talk about the topic of demon when we're talking about the Bible. One key thing to point out, directly in the Bible, and I'm speaking particularly King James, which is the preferred version that I like to read. So in that version, it doesn't say demon anywhere in that. What? So that does mean there's no demons in the Bible? So we're not casting out demons? What are we casting out? Don't. Whoa. Go there. Stop. Chill. Okay? What I mean with that is that they interpret or speak to them to being something else. So let's focus on the topic of demon, right? What's the word demon? It actually stems originally from the Greek term coming as daemon, D-A-I-M-O-N, and in that interpretation, one of the first meanings, the earlier meanings of that, is speaking of a genius or a different conscience. So I think it was Aristotle, there was one who used his daemon to make wise decisions in his life. He consulted with his daemon to make those wise decisions. So that's something very key that I want to make sure that I point out, and I would look it up. He used that to make wise decisions. Now, that began to translate into different meanings. Now, the same word in the Greek also translates to a spirit or to an evil spirit. Also in Latin, which is spelled differently for daemon, meaning D-A-E-M-O-N, that is also meaning of an evil spirit, a malicious spirit. That's what they use to speak to those. Now, one thing that you will find in the Bible is that the Bible actually speaks of unclean spirits, which is so very important to notice. It speaks of them being unclean spirits. One of the things also about unclean spirits is akathartos is what I believe to be I think it's the Latin term for unclean spirit as well, which is just meaning impure. So keep these key terms in mind. These are not redeemable things. Spirits are not redeemable. Demons are not redeemable, which is something, again, when we're talking about anime, that I encourage the body to be careful of. They're not redeemable. Although in certain anime they portray demons to, oh, they have a soft side. Oh, but they really want to do good, but they don't have the chance to do good or be seen as someone good. You know, give them that second chance. Why won't God give them that second chance? One, hey, we're focused on you. God's focused on your salvation, not any other creature, deity, or anything else that exists outside of that. The focus is on your salvation. Do what you need to do for you to be saved. If you're not even doing that, why are you focused on any other existing creature? Even more so, the Bible wants us to not only focus on our own salvation, but the rest of humanity's salvation. That in and of itself is hard work. Stop focusing on demons. Leave them alone. Two, they're non-redeemable creatures. They are not human, who are designed to be saved, while those other things are not designed to be saved. That's something that we can talk in more detail in a different time. But for this video, that's the most important thing that I can say. They're not redeemable. Let's look further, though, through Scripture to identify some other key things about these spirits. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 12, beginning at verse 43. And it reads, "When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, when it has been cast out, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest, and findeth none. Then he saith, I will return into my house, from whence I came out. And when he is come, he findeth it empty, swept, and garnished. Then goeth he, and taketh with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. And they enter in and dwell there, and the last state of that man is worse than the first. Even so shall it be also unto the wicked generation." So the question is, all right, what's it saying here in Mark? What it's saying here is it's identifying, one, that the spirit needs to be released from the person. The spirits cause a level of bondage. You feel entrapped. If you've ever felt like you can't go forward, some of you that experience anxiety, some of you that have experienced depression, that's a spiritual thing. That's a spiritual warfare. It's making you feel like you can't be more than that. This state that I am in is inescapable. I am trapped. I am falling deeper. And for a lot of people, that's what leads to suicide. That spirit has bound me. This man in Mark was bound by a spirit, but that spirit was released. What's key here when we're looking at what happens when the spirit is released, there is almost like an emptiness. Something is left empty. Now, the question that follows that is, what needs to replace what has been removed? That's one of the deepest things about it. It's a very delicate realm in which to navigate. God is in this realm. The Spirit of God is in this realm. The Holy Spirit dwells here, but also do evil things dwell here. So we can't navigate through this thing like it's a new world to be discovered and there are no dangers to be found. There are many dangers to be found that are far greater when you are navigating through it recklessly. So you do indeed have to be very careful. Right? You want to make sure that you properly replace it, because when you don't, you release yourself of a thing, you get bound up in something once again, and what follows that? You find out that you're empty, you don't do anything to replace it. 7 more spirits come to replace it, which is an increasing of the bondage. It's almost like, think of it like this, right? If a slave runs away, what are they going to do to ensure that that slave doesn't get away? Right? And in this particular case, we're talking bondage. So if you've been chained up, but you figure out how to break out of your 2 chains, they're going to go and add several more chains to limit your mobility to ensure that you're not getting out of those chains. And that's what those spirits are doing. They're coming back to ensure that this person's not getting away. We're going to ensure their own death and destruction. We've got you. That's the goal of that. Does it mean you can't be delivered from them? No, but it makes it that much harder for you to strive towards deliverance to be able to take hold of that deliverance. And again, if you don't know how to replace that, what's the point of getting rid of the 7 anyway, right? So that's something that's very important when we're talking about spirits. These spirits come to kill and to destroy you. Yes, to steal, because they're stealing away your time. They're stealing away your ability to grow. They're stealing away your ability to flourish, which God has intended. As Jesus said, I came so that you may have life and so that you can have it more abundantly. And you can't do that when you're bound. You can't do that when you're enslaved. You can't do that when you're being destroyed. Now, I want to also look at 1 Samuel chapter 16. I'll begin at verse 12. And he sent and said and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and withal of a beautiful countenance and goodly to look to. And the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. And Saul's servant said unto him, Behold now, an evil spirit from God troubleth thee. Now look here when we're looking at this, right? We have Saul, King Saul, who is troubled by an evil spirit now too. And what comes with that, right? What comes with that? Look, so David was anointed to be the next king. David, being anointed to be the next king, received the Spirit of God. In turn, the Spirit of God leaves Saul, and now Saul is now something else has replaced it. Remember, I was talking about getting rid of the evil to replace it with something good. Vice versa happens too, where when you're getting when what is good has been removed from you, then that leaves a door open for something evil to come in. Now, what this does is this leaves Saul troubled. This leaves Saul in a state of depression, in a state of loss, confusion, unable to make wise decisions, function properly. And that even follows with him finding someone to play music for him that soothes him and brings peace to his spirit. One of the things that does that, though, we have David is the one that was selected. And not to get too deep into spiritualism, but with David being the one that was selected and being skilled in the harp, it wasn't just the music that did it. It was the spirit that was on David that was familiar to Saul. So Saul was able to find peace in the presence of David. He was able to find peace in the presence of David. So the combination of the music and the spirit really changed that situation. So what is there to say there? Again, like I said, there's that reversal, and it also demonstrates how much spirits are relevant in our society. When we act as though we're too far advanced for these things to be an issue, right? We know what we do and do not need to do to be successful. We have all of these things available to us to either be successful or to completely, flop. But there's so much happening now that there's so many different forms of attack that doctors, psychologists, therapists, scholars even don't know how to speak to or deal with these issues outside of giving people medication that leads them down a road of addiction, even opening up the door for another spirit. Not saying that's how it happens for everybody. Medication works very well. Medication isn't something I frown upon. But because of you being in a state of depression, you now need this to feed it. This is that replacement, which again just kind of numbs you to it versus it allowing you to actually deal with the problem, be delivered, and live freely. So there's so much that plays into that it's like all of these things that happen. And we're not going to be able to talk about all of it because I don't want this video to be too long. So the last thing I want to leave you guys with is a very important and powerful moment here too. And you can find this in two places. You could either look in Mark 5 verse 9, or you can look in Luke chapter 3 verse 8, I believe it is. And in either one of these moments, you're looking at where Jesus, he was coming off of a boat into a new city. And in coming into this new city, he is met with someone that is troubled by unclean spirits. What did these unclean spirits do? I highly recommend you go and read that, right? Because it speaks to what these unclean spirits do to this man. They make this man live in a cemetery. They make this man scratch and cut his own body, torturing himself by his own hand, right? They make him live alone. And if anyone comes to bind him or to deal with him, super strength is demonstrated, and he flings them like they're easy. And he breaks out of every chain he's bound to. But it's that self-destruction that's so very evident here. This demon was just to speak properly, this unclean spirit was known as legion, which means that there are many. But Jesus simply spoke to these spirits to come out of this man, and he cast them into the pigs. Now, two things to identify here. One of which is the harm that this caused this person. We were talking about the intent of these unclean spirits, the intent of demons, is that they're looking to do damage to us, looking to fulfill our destruction. Because they are already condemned to hell, they're looking to bring about that same thing for us with as many people as they can, which is why they reacted the way that they did to Jesus. They asked him, "Are you here to condemn us before our time? Please, just cast us into those pigs," versus casting us into hell to burn forever. They didn't want to have to burn yet. It's also one of those things that speaks to the devil not being in hell, but we're not going there either. So, he cast them into the pigs. Now, what does this demonstrate? The fear that the demon's legion had were in response to who? Jesus. Okay? They responded to Jesus that way because Jesus is the one that has rulership, authority, and power over them. Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and God, the Godhead, they rule over him as one. They have dominion over the evil spirits, over the devil. So none of them can approach him as if they have power and authority over him, right? And so that demonstrates when you're asking the question, what can defeat demons? What can hurt demons? What can bring down the devil? How can I be delivered? This can only be done through Jesus Christ. You're asking this question, well, they demonstrate it this way. This culture speaks of it that way. Look, there's one way to deal with these things, right? There's one way to deal with these things, and that's through the power of Jesus Christ. That's through the power of his word. You're like, well, if there's different way to kill people, there's different ways to kill demons.
If it bleeds, you can kill it.
That's, again, we're talking about spiritual warfare. We're not talking about natural warfare. When you're dealing with spiritual things, you have to deal with them in spirit. And that has to be done by the spirit that rules over those spirits. And that's Jesus. Those spirits will not submit to you. In a case with what's known as the Sons of Zebedee in the Bible, these Sons of Zebedee went to cast out spirits. Those spirits said, "Jesus I know, Paul I know, but who are you?" Leaving that person to go and torture and play with these people, causing them more harm, because they came and said, we cast you out in the name of Jesus in whom Paul preached, right? They didn't have that relationship. They weren't operating in Jesus' authority. They thought they could just do what Paul did. And that led to them themselves being tortured. So you cannot approach spirits any kind of way that you want to. Anime does portray that. Either demon versus demon is the only way they can fight. Or you gotta get a custom-made witch's knife. Or you gotta depend on this type of power to do it, or that kind of power to do it, or I grow myself in my own power, soon I'll be stronger than demons. You know, they speak of these things in so many different ways. Jujutsu Kaisen talking about harnessing curse power. You have oh my gosh, there's like, again, there's so many different ways to look at it. Of course, I like the Gray Man's depiction because yes, that's tying back to the true and living God in its own right, but they use innocence to deal with Kuma and to deal with Noah and other type of demonic type things. So that's how they deal with those demons. Berserk is demonstrating that man-made weapons can do enough damage if you suffer and press and are willing to sacrifice everything to do it, but you can kill a demon yourself. Like, Berserk is very hard about these things. It ain't easy. I think I like Berserk's depiction probably is the most realist because you can't just approach him any kind of way. You can't just hope that magic spell will do it. You can't just hope the big sword, the cannon, the missile will do it. It's got to be by the power of God, guys. And that's the most important thing I want to bring in this video. It's just realization. I just want to bring evidence. And if you have any spiritual experiences, if you have any depression or anxiety that you're dealing with, guys, please leave a comment in the comment section. I want to hear from you guys. I want to be able to pray for you, to speak on your behalf. I trust in the power of God. I believe in the power of God. I believe that God has gifted us and equipped us to be able to fight this fight. So if you want to believe with me, if you want to know more about these things, let's talk about it. So please, again, leave a comment. If you like this video, leave a like, as well as if you love the content, please hit that subscribe button. And again, as the new year's coming, we're going to make sure that we're making this consistent. Thank you guys, and y'all have a blessed evening. Peace.